Welcome to the Royal Daily Tea YouTube channel. Please be advised all of my videos are for entertainment purposes only, based 100% on my own opinion, my own theories, and my own research. All of my information can be found on the public domain and falls under the fair use guidelines. Please feel free to do your own research. Hi everyone, it's Michelle and welcome back to the Royal Daily Tea. I apologize for my absence. I've been really busy, but I'm super excited to be back and to film another short video for you today. So we're going to piggyback a little bit off of my last video where we talked about how the Sussexes could possibly be selling their Montecito mansion because it quote unquote it doesn't make them all tickly and giggly inside. It's just not up to their standards that most of us would dream of having a house of that magnitude. Now, I believe that there's a couple of reasons as to why they are selling their home. It could be because they are a little cash poor, maybe not raking in the dough as they had anticipated. As you remember, when the Sussexes started Megxit back in January of 2020, nobody knew of the worldwide pandemic that was going to hit in March of 2020. It literally took everyone by surprise. So when Harry and Meghan moved out to California with, stars in their eyes, thinking they're going to get these huge, $1 million speaking events like the Obamas, they were sorely, sorely mistaken when the worldwide pandemic shut everything down. Hollywood, everything was shut down. So all of those speaking events, all of those Hollywood events, they weren't coming in. The invitations weren't coming in because everybody was on lockdown. So I remember the first, 2020, you really didn't see much of Harry and Meghan out in public. However, they started with all those infamous Zoom calls. And so I always ask myself, do you think that Harry and Meghan regret Megxit of 2020? Because if they would have waited until 2021, it would have been a much better year for them. The ironic thing was they didn't want to do the work, to be the working royal. They didn't want to be the public servant in a tiara. They wanted to go out and be woke and give woke speeches and get in politics and do, women's rights and, of course, cash in on all these multiple mega brand deals that they're supposedly cashing in on. And, of course, dishing the dirt, on talk shows. Well, the funny thing is, back in 2020, all they did was get on Zoom calls that they pretty much weren't even invited to half the time. If you watch some of those Zoom calls, people were just like, yeah, okay. Where she gave that infamous speech to her high school alma mater, and everyone was just like, okay, thanks for the video that we didn't ask for, Meghan. And they literally never even mentioned or even played the clip of her giving that speech to her ex-high school because nobody cared. Nobody wanted it. They were trying to get seen, during a time where pretty much the worldwide pandemic was the #1 story of 2020. So it was kind of a bad year to leave the royal family and go out for financial freedom. So part of me kind of wonders if they were wondering, well, gosh, if we would have just waited until January of 2021, we could have stayed as working royals over Zoom, because literally that's all of what the royal families did was have Zoom calls. Well, Harry and Meghan could have done some royal Zoom calls from the palace, right? So I just thought it was kind of funny how they just did their Zoom calls from Montecito, where they could have just been a working royal for another year because there was really nothing going on in 2020. So I always kind of laugh about that. Like, talk about the year to leave. It was the worst year in history where nothing was going on. So do you think they regret leaving at that time? Because it was literally the worst time. But anyways, so when they came out to California, then they had the worldwide pandemic, none of those offers were coming in, right? But then they started signing deals with Netflix and, of course, Spotify and a couple of other brands that don't make any sense. It just seems like they're just throwing their name out there, whatever sticks, and whoever gives them a paycheck, they just kind of sign their name to. They have so many deals with so many companies, I honestly couldn't even tell you all of them. I know they have Procter and Gamble. Lord knows what they're doing with them. Spotify, Netflix. I think they have one with that company for ethical investing, which is a little ironic if you think about it. I mean, Archewell Foundation has some questionable funding practices, and there's some weird things going on with their taxes and moving of funds. When I believe they said they made like $50,000 for the year for Archewell Foundation, which is pretty low for people of their stature to only have raised $50,000. Are you kidding me? It's like, did they spend the other 95% of the donations on her wardrobe? You know, that infamous $30,000 wardrobe that she wore to New York City was almost the same amount that they raised in an entire year for Archewell Foundation. I kind of find that a little suspicious. And the thing that another person on YouTube brought up, and I'll try to link her video, was there something about the filing of a nonprofit where if they make 50,000 or less, I believe they just have to fill out a small piece of paper and they don't have to disclose all of the details of, I believe, how they handled their money, like the funds that came in and what was distributed. I could be wrong. I'm sure you guys will correct me. Leave your comments down below. But again, the fact that they're associating themselves with ethical investing and they have some shady stuff going on with, you know, the old Sussex Royal and Archewell Foundation and these weird $50,000 that they've raised, it seems a little suspicious to me. It's just weird, right? It's weird. They have all these weird little brand deals, but of course, they haven't done anything. What are they doing for Procter and Gamble? What are they doing for these ethical investment people, right? The biggest thing I've seen them promote all year is Vax Live and, of course, her book, The Bench, which was a flop. So I do believe the Sussexes are kind of biting off a little bit more than they can handle. Yes, he's worth millions of dollars, and I'm sure they're going to always have millions of dollars. I don't think they're going to be in the soup line next week. Their idea broke is a lot more than our idea broke. You know, having 10 million in the bank is probably considered broke to them because you can't afford a $15 million mansion when you got only 10 million in the bank, right? You got to downsize. So I don't think they're broke, but I don't think they're doing as well as they thought they were going to do. And that house is very, very expensive. I think on a website they were saying that the mortgage is over $200,000 a month. They have these huge tax bills. I mean, honestly, if you're not bringing in that kind of money, you can go through millions of dollars very quickly. Now, you also have to remember that for them, in order to do Netflix, they had to hire these very expensive directors, writers, producers, you know, people who actually have skills, because Harry and Meghan, let's be honest, they don't have any skills to make movies. So they have to hire these people who are well into the mid six figures for each of these employees to work for Archewell Foundation, Archewell Audio. So they have to pay these people salaries, and they have their security, then they have their house staff, then they have this huge house payment, then they have legal fees. Now, I believe some of their legal fees were reimbursed. For that Daily Mail, I think they had to pay them like $1 million. So Meghan might have gotten $1 million back for her legal fees, but the Daily Mail just paid them $1 in that case that they supposedly won, which, let's be honest here, I don't believe Harry and Meghan really won. That wasn't a case where they came out a victorious winner. As a matter of fact, I think it did major damage for them, but we'll get into that in a different video. So when it comes to them selling their house, there's a lot of things and a lot of questions. Some people believe they possibly rented the house, and to me, that makes perfect sense. You have to remember, you know, chucking down $5 million for a down payment on a house, that's a lot of chunk change. Unless they just took the money that Charles gave them, remember, and just put it as a down payment. But something tells me they rented this house. And the reason why I believe they possibly rented this house was I believe the house was purchased by a trust. I don't think it has their names actually listed as the owners. Also, the fact that they were in this house for 18 months and never did any renovations, right? So if you're renting a property, you're not going to do any renovations because you're a renter. So if you don't like a property, like we discussed in my other video, you're going to make some changes. You don't just throw out the baby with the bathwater, as they say. You know, it's a beautiful house. I saw pictures. Personally, it looked like a turnkey property. I don't know what they would need to change. What's not to love about 16 bathrooms, 9 bedrooms, a spa, a sauna, a swimming pool, a tennis court, a movie theater? I mean, seriously, you never have to leave your house, guys. That's a beautiful house. I don't know what else these people need, not to mention their poor little rescue chickens. Are they going to take their rescue chickens with them? I don't know. But it just seems a little odd that they would trash the house and say, well, we just weren't pleased. We're not over the moon with this property. We don't like the location. But please come by our house and make sure you give us top dollar. People who are selling their house don't trash their house. You know, don't say it's not good enough for us. It's just bizarre to me. And also the way that they're not technically listing the house publicly makes me wonder, because maybe it's not them who's selling the house. Maybe the person who owns the property is selling it and that's why they have to move. So I don't know. I'm not saying they rented it, but to me, it does bring up a lot of questions. The way that they go about things is just extremely odd. But if they were the owners or are the owners of the house, well, when I went on Zillow, it was estimating the house to be worth about $22 million. So technically, they could walk away with a nice chunk of change in profit if they sold their house, because right now it is a seller's market. So it would be a good time to sell the property. I suspect the house was too expensive, for them to keep putting money into it, and there is a large tax bill. Some people were saying maybe they got an ARM type of loan where now it was going to become more and more expensive at this time frame. So there's a multitude of reasons as why they would leave, but them not liking the property, I don't think is the reason. It's either A, too expensive, or B, they were renting and they have to move. Now, there's a rumor out there, according to YouTuber Neil Sean, that the Sussexes might be looking for a second home in the UK. Now, Meghan, as we know, has not stepped foot in the UK since Megxit, and let's be honest here, I don't think she wants to ever go back, but she hasn't stepped foot in the UK in a while. Now, I believe this could very well be true, because every time Harry does go back for the UK, he stays at Frogmore Cottage with Eugenie and her husband, Jack. But I believe because Her Majesty's health is now pretty much declining. I mean, I hate to say it, but she's going to be 96 years old, and honestly, I don't think she has a ton of time left. Not to mention the Platinum Jubilee is happening this year. I believe there's some work he has to do for Invictus over in Europe. There's the 25th anniversary of Princess Diana's death this year. And the fact that they haven't been seen around the royal family in a positive light. And don't forget, we have Archie and Lilibet. Lilibet Diana has never met the Queen in person. She didn't get the royal christening that they wanted to have happen. And in order for Harry and Meghan to continue to be, money-making machines, they need to keep those titles. They need to keep a foot at Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace, they're trying to slam the door, but Harry's got his foot in the door like, not so fast. I'm still a prince. So that's their moneymaker. Their titles is what's paying their bills. Okay? Nobody cares about a ginger and nutmeg, but they care about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, right? That's their moneymaker. So it would be a smart move if they had a second residence in the UK and they moved there with their children, even just 3 months, 6 months out of the year, and really started sucking up to Granny. You know what I'm saying? They really need to get those money-making shots of the Queen and Lilibet because they didn't get the royal christening. They named their daughter after the Queen because they want to have a doorway to the royal family. You know, for two people who were so traumatized and hated the royal family and how horribly they were treated, boy, they sure like to keep those titles and their ties to the royals, and they named their daughter after the Queen. This is all very deliberate, guys. This is a very deliberate act. Okay, these people want their children to have a certain status. They want their children to have titles. Remember how they threw a hissy fit on the Oprah Winfrey Show when Archie wasn't elevated to a prince and didn't get his security on the day he was born, even though none of the other great grandchildren of the Queen were given titles, but they expected special treatment for Archie because that is how they feel that they're above everybody else, right? So they definitely need to keep that door open. They need to make sure that they have a pathway to the Queen. And since the Queen is not doing well, and it is her Platinum Jubilee, and supposedly they were invited, and that they're going to go. Because mark my words, this is a history-making moment. This is never going to come around again. Having the longest reigning monarch in history, who's your grandmother, yeah, these two aren't going to miss out. These two grifters are going to be trying to get themselves and their kids on that balcony. Mark my words. That's why I do believe they will have a second residence in the UK. It would make sense because he needs to get close to Granny, because if something happens to her, heaven forbid, and Charles becomes king, he and his father are not on the best of terms. He just threw his father under the bus. They're not speaking. His new book that Harry is writing is going to trash his father and Camilla. They're going to talk about the affair, the afterworks of what happened after Diana's funeral. It's not going to be a good book, guys. He is going to be trashing his family. So when Charles becomes king and Camilla has a very good chance of becoming queen, they could very well go to Parliament and say, we need to get rid of these two grifters, get them out of the line of succession, and remove their titles. We're done with them. But right now they have the Queen, who still has a soft spot for Harry. She is literally their only saving grace. So they need to get into the Queen. They need to start getting Lilibet, get some photos with her, get some photo opportunities. They're going to start putting out these little fluff pieces about Lilibet, Diana, and the Queen. Aren't they cute? You know how they did the Arch and the Archie with Desmond Tutu? Make it seem like, oh, Archie, Arch, and Arch. They're going to try to do the same thing with Lilibet and Lily. You know what I mean? They're going to play that up. They need the publicity, and they really need to play up that relationship with the Queen and their children. They need to make sure their children will get those titles, because if it's up to Charles, he's probably going to cut them off. So I think they're trying to get into the good graces of the Queen and the royal family before it's too late. And of course, they'll be bringing the Netflix crew to come over and get some good footage for that supposedly secret, for the documentary series that's supposedly not happening, but I think we all know is actually happening. So what are your thoughts, guys? Do you think the Sussexes are selling their house because they're broke? Or do you think they were renting the property? And do you think they will have a second residence in the UK? Leave your comments, guys, down below. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Please make sure to check me out on all of my other social media accounts. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe because it really helps the channel. And have an awesome and amazing day. Bye, guys.